Yo, what is going on, guys? This is Big Ziff here, and today I'm going to be talking about what I think are the best artifact sets for Hu Tao, as well as how I think you should build her main stats and her substats. It's going to be a long one, but I think you're going to get some really good pointers out of it. And don't forget to please leave a like and subscribe, as this took me almost 4 hours to compile all the information and edit it. And even though I spent a long time researching her best sets, take the things I say in this video with a grain of salt, because the ranking of these sets are just my own opinion, and they may not always be the best for your build that you're trying to create. And I know as soon as I post this, people are going to be in the comments saying this build is better than that one. But, I'm just making this because I love theory crafting on my own anyways. So just take these as recommendations and not facts. But anyways, let's jump straight into the artifact sets. So first, what we're going to talk about is what I think will be the best set bonuses for building Hu Tao as your main DPS. Then we'll discuss stats and substats after. So I think that the top tier artifact sets for Hu Tao are obviously going to be the Pyro sets. The first one I want to talk about is the 2-piece Crimson Witch, 2-piece Noblesse Oblige set. I think this will be extremely beneficial to her if you're going for the overall Pyro build, as well as the extra ultimate and elemental burst damage. So the 2-piece Crimson Witch will obviously give you the best benefit as a 2-piece set. It's going to give you that 15% pyro damage bonus. I think this 2-piece set will be the best overall because it doesn't really have any downsides in terms of the different team comps or build potentials with Hu Tao. It's going to pretty much benefit her in every aspect. So the combination of these two sets will benefit both her elemental skill and elemental burst, obviously, and this is really effective as her elemental skill is going to be the most consistent source of her damage as a DPS. And then on top of that, we'll have the elemental burst after that. On top of the pyro damage bonus, the 20% elemental burst bonus from Noblesse set is going to be kind of insane with Hu Tao's ultimate because it's going to scale extremely hard, more so when she's below 50% HP, but I'll show you on screen now what that level 10 talent is going to look like. Even though this burst isn't quite as strong as someone like Child or Zhongli, the damage when she's below 50% HP is still going to be insane, especially when you combine it with that pyro damage bonus from Crimson Witch. Before we get into the next artifact sets, I just wanted to say that I think most of the videos I've watched on Hu Tao's artifact builds have been pretty misleading and pretty poor quality overall, because they talk about things like 2-piece Bloodstained for physical builds, or 2-piece Gladiator set, or even 4-piece Gladiator sets. And I don't think these are going to be the best sets for her by a long shot. Obviously, we don't want a physical build for her, even if you're running Crescent Pike. And while normally the Gladiator is pretty good for almost any build, for Hu Tao, the attack bonus from the Gladiator is going to be the least effective out of any character in the game because she has the lowest base attack out of any character in the game. Additionally, the 4-piece set bonus from the Gladiator set only provides additional normal attack damage, which will actually be outperformed and outscaled by the 4-piece Retracing Bullide set, which I'll talk about in a bit. I just wanted to quickly add this in here because I know that some people won't watch to the end of the video, but I wanted to quickly point out that I don't think the 2-piece Gladiator set will be in her top tier builds at all. But anyways, let's get into the next best set, which I think will be the 4-piece Lavawalker. The first reason for this is because her elemental skill or her E ability will convert all her damage to pyro. This means normal attacks, charge attacks, plunge attacks, so on. This set is going to increase damage against any enemies who are burning or are affected by pyro by 35%. So obviously this is going to benefit her pyro skills, which is going to be both her skill and her burst ability. So while this set is going to be very good for the elemental skill and the elemental burst independently, I'm not sure if you can use them at the same time. So I'm not sure if you can use your E ability and then cast your burst within the E and it won't end it. I'm not entirely sure about that, but if you can, this will be really, really strong set overall. I just want to add here that this 4-piece Lavawalker set can work extremely well with the right team as long as you're not casting a bunch of elemental reactions. So something like a double pyro team along with Geo I think will work really well with this set. And there's potentially some room for Animo teams, but I think the swirl will probably cause problems. So again, just take this with a grain of salt. Outside of a double pyro comp or a Geo comp, this may be a troublesome set to manage in terms of team comp, but it seems to provide crazy damage buffs if the pyro status can be maintained, which hopefully it will be with her skill and her burst. So the next one I'm going to talk about is the 4-piece Crimson Witch set, which will give you the pyro bonus as well as some elemental reaction combo bonus. Obviously, it has the potential to be extremely strong because of both passives. One of them is going to increase your pyro damage bonus by 50% when you're in your elemental skill. So this will take that 15% pyro damage bonus up to 22.5% when her elemental skill gets used. But I don't think this is going to be the strongest set overall for her as a main DPS, in my opinion. And this is primarily because we don't want to rotate off of Hu Tao while she's in her E ability, as it'll end the skill similar to Xiao's ultimate ability. So if you plan on doing any vaporize or melt reactions, you'll want to be setting those up either before she casts her E, or you can set these up with her ultimate instead, which I think is where the elemental reactions might actually get the most benefit out of. Also, by the time she's out of her E ability, I think that's when it may be worth it to swap and cycle through your other team members' abilities while Hu Tao's elemental skill is on cooldown. So the other bonus from the 4-piece Crimson Witch set is increasing overload and burning damage by 40% and increasing vaporize and melt damage by 15%. So I know that people are going to still be able to achieve these insane one-shot vaporizes and melts with Hu Tao. I just think that for her being built as a main DPS and almost always wanting to be on the field, that this won't be the best set for her overall. So one final potential combo I'm going to list with the Crimson Witch is the 2-piece Crimson Witch and the 2-piece Wanderer's Troop. Obviously, since Hu Tao is Pyro, she'll be able to create those strong reactions like Melt and Vaporize. The Elemental Mastery bonus from Wanderers will be insane against strong enemies already affected by certain elements. But remember, like I mentioned earlier, her elemental skill or her E ability kind of makes her seem like a selfish DPS to me, because it won't be really beneficial to swap out to another character while her E is still active. However, I think the elemental reactions could still be very viable with her ultimate and its high damage multipliers at low HP. So those were all the main sets I wanted to talk about that I think could potentially be among meta builds for Hu Tao. If you've made it this far in the video, thanks again for watching all the way through. It really means a lot to me. But now we're going to talk about some of the alternative set builds that I came up with, and then we'll go over stats and substats at the end. So of the alternate sets I picked, I think that the 4-piece Retracing Bolide will actually be one of the best out of them. As long as you're protected by a shield, the attack bonus you receive will be slightly higher than the 4-piece Gladiator, and it can apply to both normal and charged attacks. The reason this actually fits so well with Hu Tao's kit is because during her elemental skill, charged attacks will also apply that Blood Blossom effect, which will do the extra pyro damage to the affected enemies. So this will increase the damage of those charged attacks when you're trying to cast a Blood Blossom on someone. My main issue with this build and why I didn't include it in the kind of like meta builds is because you have to manage that shield. I think this will prove fairly tricky with Hu Tao's kit, especially once she's already cast her E ability to switch off and get a shield in order to get these bonuses. However, I think people who will use this set will be able to master the rotation fairly easy, because the 2-piece set bonus will give you that 35% shield strength increase. So you'll just have to be cautious and try to manage that shield and get it up before you cast your E ability. The next set I'm going to talk about is actually one that I think is going to be super slept on, and no, I'm not joking when I say this, the 4-piece Heart of Depth set. So obviously the 2-piece does nothing for her with the Hydra bonus, that's completely useless, but the 4-piece will actually synergize almost perfectly with Hu Tao's elemental skill. The bonus from this set will essentially have 100% uptime with Hu Tao's elemental skill, because after using an elemental skill, it increases your normal and charged attack damage by 30% for 15 seconds, and her cooldown, I believe, is 16 seconds on that. However, because of the fact that this set lacks any sort of pyro damage bonus, it definitely won't be the best option, but I think it still makes for a really cool build, and I think it's going to be heavily slept on. The main problem is that the Retracing Bolide will still outperform this in terms of normal and charged attacks, as long as you have a shield. So next I'm going to really be talking about some sets that I think people would think would be good, but I don't think are going to really be that viable for Hu Tao. And the first one is 2-piece Crimson Witch, 2-piece Glad. Similar to what I was talking about earlier, there's not much value in running a 2-piece Gladiator set for Hu Tao's kit, whereas normally the Gladiator set is insane for pretty much any sort of build. The main problem with this set is that the 18% attack bonus won't be very effective, because Hu Tao herself, her base attack is so low that this won't really add much to her overall attack. So the last 5-star set that I've put here and that I don't think you should use is the 4-piece Gladiator set, which I think will be the worst of all the ones we talked about today. Obviously, Similar to what I was just saying, the 18% attack bonus will be mediocre at best, and the 4-piece set bonus is pretty lackluster because it only boosts normal attacks. While I think this set might be viable under the conditions of her E ability and boosting her Pyro normal attacks, it will not buff her Elemental Burst or her charge attacks, which are going to be crucial parts to her kit. To me, the 4-piece set just seems a little bit limiting to her overall damage potential compared to some of those earlier sets that we talked about. So finally, for some 4-star sets, I'll quickly just say that if the Berserker set was a 5-star set and able to reach level 20, then I think it would be pretty insane with a 2-piece Crimson Witch, but since it's not, we're not even going to consider it. And the same goes for Gambler. I think this would actually be one of the best sets for Hu Tao in the entire game if it could be 5-star, but since it's only 4-star, we're going to leave it out. So now I'm really quickly going to talk about the artifact main stats and substats you should be considering. So obviously for the Flower and Feather, we're going to have flat HP, flat attack. You're probably going to want to run HP percent substats as well as crit damage, crit rate, and then probably energy recharge and elemental mastery after that. I think after the Flower and the Feather, you're going to want an HP percent Sands, a Pyro Cup, and a crit rate headpiece with as much HP percent substats as you can get pretty much. Personally, I think that the crit rate headpiece is going to always outscale the possible extra damage for having an HP headpiece. Still, I just want to include that there might be another option with an HP percent Sands, Pyro Cup, and an HP percent headpiece with crit rate and crit damage substats. Again, don't quote me on these, but I think that achieving the 400% damage bonus from her E ability is going to be completely dependent on other factors like your max HP as well as other gear you have like your weapon. But I still think that double HP might be risky since the only thing that really benefits from that is Hu Tao's elemental skill ability. And this actually might cause issues when you're trying to get her below 50% HP if you build it too high. Still, I'm not entirely sure of this yet, so just take this section of the video with a grain of salt. However, I do think that the HP percent Sands will outperform the attack percent Sands in terms of overall damage output because of her low base attack that we mentioned, and based on some of the projected calculations I've seen, which I'll talk about maybe in a future video. I'm not sure if I will yet. So for crit rate and crit damage stats, you're definitely going to want to try and maintain that 1-to-2 ratio on them. And some other great substats for her, like I said earlier, will most likely be HP percent as well as energy recharge and elemental mastery, especially energy recharge if you're building her for her ultimate. And then I think attack percentage should be the last substat that you consider. Again, it's not a completely bad substat overall, but for Hu Tao's kit specifically, I think that HP percent and crit rate and crit damage are going to likely be her bread and butter. The last thing I want to say in summary for the video is that I do think Pyro Damage Bonus Cup as well as at least some kind of Pyro Artifact Set bonus will be the strongest meta builds for Hu Tao just because of how her E ability consumes her in Pyro and how her ultimate also does large Pyro AoE damage. But yeah, other than that, that's pretty much going to be it, guys. I appreciate any of you that stuck around to the end. Again, it really means a lot to me and just kind of motivates me to make these videos. I'm going to try and put more effort into some of these character theory crafting videos in the future. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, please sub to the channel. And other than that, I will catch you guys in the next video. Peace.